Hello, welcome to a new video. If you are new here, my name is Amandine. I've been living in Singapore for 4 years, and on this channel I like to share about anything that's happening in Singapore. And today we are going to talk about Singaporeans, stereotypes about Singaporean that people have, that I might have, and that overseas people have about Singaporean. I've had my fair share of experience with local here in Singapore, so I want to talk about some of those stereotypes and maybe shed some light on misconceptions about Singaporeans. So let's get started with one of the most prevalent stereotypes is that Singaporeans are not speaking proper English. While I do think it's true that Singaporeans have an English, but it's like Australian have an English accent as well. Most of the Singaporeans do know how to speak English and speak a proper English, like is the primary language of business, of the government, of the education, and often on top of Chinese, everyone is bilingual, meaning that at school they have learned their mother tongue, so either Chinese, Tamil, or Malay. So with all that, Singaporeans do know how to speak English and other languages. Being in Singapore, of course, you might be aware that we have this thing called Singlish, which is a mix of all the language in Singapore, so it's quite unique, but it's not like Singaporeans are gonna speak Singlish with people that are not from here, or like when they travel they can actually speak a proper English. So no, Singlish is not the official language. Everyone can speak a proper English and is more like a misconception. Next, we are speaking about Singaporean women. There is a stereotype saying that Singaporeans are very materialism, so really interested in material possession. I think for that I cannot really speak because most of my local friends are actually not like my image of the typical Singaporean woman, which is like very feminine. But it is true that even online I can see that things are being shared about what you should have, or even like what your boyfriend should have, and if he doesn't have that, then like it's not right. But in the end, while some people might enjoy luxury handbag and luxury cars, it's not the case of everyone, and it's a bit unfair to generalize. Trends in Singapore tends to appear quickly and also to disappear very quickly, pushing people to just consume more and more. It's also for those people who want to appear the best. They are in competition with like so many people, and like in Singapore also everyone share about what they have, so you are definitely in competition with everyone, and they might have different level of income. So that's like kind of a rat race. I would say overall I would agree, because in Singapore, women might tend to want things that you actually don't really need in Singapore. Like for example, that's my personal opinion, right? This channel is my personal opinion. Even wanting your boyfriend to have a car, I think like it's a bit pointless, especially if your boyfriend doesn't have a car already and he's just gonna get a car for you. I would say yes, but do let me know in the comments if you have counter argument. And because we are speaking about spending money, let's talk about this misconception that everyone in Singapore is crazy rich, from the movie, of course, Crazy Rich Asian. I would say it's like everywhere else. I've seen people with a lot of money, I've seen people with a little less, and I've seen people with a lot less. But to remind you, most citizens in Singapore are from middle income families. Only 1 or 2% of the population in Singapore is actually millionaires. So while Singapore is considered one of the most expensive cities in the world, not everyone is crazy rich. Now, something that is really true is that most Singaporeans are going to live with their parents well after their 20s. Why it seems like a bad thing in Europe, the fact that you're still living with your parents, like it's showing your incapacity of starting your own life. Living with your parents in Singapore is very common, and also in other parts of Asia. It's often a choice for respect and affordability. It's just a culture thing. Especially in Singapore, there's this scheme called BTO, where build to order. So when you get married, you can get flat that has been built by the government. So what will happen is often they will find a partner, check that it's serious or not, and then they will apply for BTO. a BTO usually takes 4 years before they can like actually get the key and get in the flat. So during that period they will just keep living with their parents and just save money, which is for the better because private housing in Singapore is expensive. So personally I do think that it's smart. Personally, I've moved out of my parents when I was like in my 20s, when I went to uni. So at this point of time of my life, I think it would be really hard for me to go back to my parents. But if I never left, honestly, I would have been fine. Next stereotype is that Singaporeans like to complain when something is not going their way. I would say that it's true, but let me explain. I think it's mostly due to the government being so reactive when feedback is given, like it won't go unheard. Some people will think that it's being entitled, but I think it's just the context that they are living in all their life. Most Singaporeans are actually nice and friendly when you meet them in real life. I think there's a slight difference also, like offline and online. Of course, online people tend to be more rude and harsher with their words, especially on the topic of price and foreigners. Now let's talk about Singaporean being Kiasu. For people who doesn't know what Kiasu means, it means fear of losing, missing out on something. It's basically the behavior that leads Singaporeans to queue for something potentially good ahead or something free. While it's true, some people might think that it's a good habit to have, and some people might think that it's a very bad habit to have. I don't really have a take on this because also personally I do queue for things in Singapore. There's this thing also that Singapore is so small, and when there's an event or something, often many people want to attend that event, so indeed might not have for everyone. So yeah, maybe because I'm Kaso also, I don't want to say that it's a bad thing. I guess in the end everyone is a little Kaso. And we can talk about our last stereotype, is that Singaporeans are the biggest foodie that you will ever meet. I think the love for food in Singapore is really strong. It's like a passion, a hobby, a way of life of people to go and try good things, to eat good things. Even when I post some food videos on my channel here on YouTube, but also TikTok and Instagram, I often get feedback of people all saying, oh, you should try this place instead, it's better. Like they've been to like so many restaurants, so many places, so they are really knowledgeable about food in Singapore. I'm always so surprised to see so many food business thriving, but it's thanks to like everyone eating out for breakfast, lunch, dinner, outside, and participate to this economy. Whether you are craving Indian, Malay, Chinese, Western food, you have it all in Singapore. So this stereotype is true and is the best thing about Singaporean. So those were all the stereotypes that people might have about Singaporean. I hope I've answered and clarified some of them. Of course, I'm not a Singaporean, so I'm only answering from like the outside. I mean, my boyfriend is local. Now that I know this list, I will see whether I'm becoming a bit more Singaporean as I'm aging in Singapore. But I'm still waiting on my PR. It's been about 3 months now and no answer, so I assume it's good news. No news is better than a rejection. But that's gonna be it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.